Okay. I'm recording this because I think there are one or two people that are absent. They might want to know what we did, but if they don't ask, I will not give. All right, so don't worry. All right, so we need to know what was Africa like. Before I got this little clip, my mind was that Africa was monarchical. Monarchical. We were ruled by a monarchy. And monarchies are not elected by the people. They're selected in a special way. So if you have empires, you would have emperors. If you have kingdoms, you would have what? Kings. We don't have queendoms yet. Even when we have a kingdom, there will be a king or a queen. All right? So there were empires, but I don't think Africans called their own emperors. They were just kings. And we will look at what happened in those days when the kings ruled. They didn't have a written constitution. In the United Kingdom, they don't have a written constitution like you do. They call it the unwritten constitution in the United Kingdom. And it's a mix of monarchical system and the present system of governance. You know that? That there is still a king, a queen of, I like to call her King of England, because that's effectively what she is. But it now looks as if she's the king of the United Kingdom. And what can be united in a kingdom that has Scotland, and Scotland has its own Congress? You have Wales, you have Ireland, and yet they say it's a United Kingdom, and this queen is supposed to be in charge. But that was what the African continent was. We had our kings, right? So let me just paint a quick picture so that maybe when you read Chris Allen, it might make more sense, right? Remember where we're coming from. We're coming from the period of colonial intervention. So we understand now what colonialism means, right? You know that it has to do, I have told you there's a bifurcation, colonialism of the land and colonialism of the mind. Both of them are very important. So once that happened, then it led to changes on the African continent. They started to do things differently. But we need to understand, what were they doing before? Prior to European colonization in the late 19th century, prior, Africa had a very long history of state building. Is there anybody here who knows the difference between the state and the nation? Yeah? The state and the nation. The seniors should know. Do you know the difference between the state and the nation?
A nation is a culture, but it doesn't necessarily have a government. There are stateless nations, yes, like the Kurdish people,
yes,
for example.
Yes.
And then a state has a functioning governing body and their own borders and that sort of thing.
What Calvin just said, let me say it in a very few words. The state is the legitimizing part of a geographical space. You want to hear that slowly? I wish I could put it into a mathematical equation. I know somebody here who would love it. The state is the legitimizing part of a geopolitical space. United States of America. The state is the one that designed this flag. The state is the one that gives you your passport. The state is the one that gives you your driver's license. But the nation is a notion, is an idea that exists in the mind of the citizens of that country or the geopolitical space. Are you with me so far? So you know that there's a difference between the state and the nation. The nation is an idea, and it's recent. But the state, all of its instruments of making people or organizing them has not been something new to the African continent. I can tell you sweet stories of the Oyo Kingdom, the Oyomesi. And what you do today, when you impeach people, you kill their political career, right? Right? Not everybody agrees. When you impeach somebody, you kill their political career. Yes? Alicia is like, I don't really believe that. But Julia says, let me think about that. Casey wants to keep a very straight face. She doesn't want me to know what she's thinking. Isaac gave a smile like, tell me again. Impeachment really kills the political career of anybody who is impeached. If the impeachment, okay, yeah, but Bill Clinton was impeached in the House, but he was not impeached in the Senate. Once you're impeached, it means that you cannot hold political office again. But we had on the African continent a form of impeachment. The only thing is that the ruler, the king, dies physically, would commit death. And we had a symbol. You would put an egg in a calabash and cover it. And as soon as you give it to the king, right? I can almost hear somebody say, is that not barbaric? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to defend this. But I'm just telling you what happens. You give a calabash to the king. Once you present it, he takes it and he turns around and he goes into his chamber. He will never come out again. That was our own form of impeachment. But you have a name for it. So there was a system of governance and checks. We didn't call them what you call them. All right? So Africa had a long history of state building, as well as a rich variety of social formation, of how societies coalesce and how they're organized, is what is called social formation, that were decentralized or stateless. Some of the first examples of state formation in human history developed in the Nile River Valley in the 4th millennium BCE. Nevertheless, during most of Africa's pre-colonial history, a significant portion of African people lived in small scale. So this is the difference. And I will say it every day until February is the deadline, when you have to compare Ali Mazuri's documentary. You would hear all of this there. It will make a lot of sense. And David Basil Davidson, the two documentaries you have to watch and then compare them. Some of these ideas you will get. What happened in pre-colonial Africa? They were small, we call them city-states. They were small city-states. And cities are the engines of development of a geopolitical space. Cities are the places where, when you get there, you don't keep thinking of your family, of your friends. You are anonymous. So even children of kings in their villages could get to the city and be sweepers. They would sweep and get paid. And they would repatriate some of the money back to the grassroots. And when they come back with the knowledge of the city in their villages. So cities are very important. And Africans had cities. and they were called city-states. They were engines of growth and development, economic activities. Why? Because people were anonymous. They were labor. They just they sold their labor, and people paid them. Are you getting me so far? Before we had this enormous thing called government, the federal government and the state government and the local government, we had our own system. And during most of Africa's pre-colonial history, a significant portion of the African people lived in small-scale, egalitarian societies in which government was more a matter of consensus among the entire adult population than ruled by an elite fellow. What you have right now, and we will get there, how politics operates today, the path to power, okay? If you don't get it by the barrel of a gun, you have to seek it by the ballot. But how do you have access? We will look at that briefly before we go to Chris Allen. All right, so one of the major contributions that historians of pre-colonial Africa have made is to demonstrate the enormous variety. So Africa, we keep saying it, Africa is not a country, it's diversified. It's not just, when I say Africa is diversified, it's not just a slogan. I mean it in essence. But we can look at specific cases in order to prove that point. And when it is diversified, it means that there are differences. I wish I could point this camera to the window outside here. And you can see the diversity of flora here. Some are trees, some are shrubs, some are creepers, and so on and so forth. And each of them has a function to play. So that diversity is strength. It's not the kind of diversity, yes, you talk about diversity here, where you want the Caucasians and the African Americans and the Latinos to be given equal opportunity. Our own diversity was the fact that we had different kinds of systems, right? It demonstrates the enormous variety and complexity of pre-colonial African political systems, and to challenge the idea, the notion that African complexity only exists in centralized states. So what are the models, the types of government in pre-colonial Africa? The other box. Centralized kingdoms and empires. Centralized small kingdoms and city-states. Centralized or stateless political societies. We can read, or please move this window away from shared. What's that? Who did that? This is Tyrone, eh? Tyrone came in and this came. Okay. Tyrone is your fault, whatever you did. So, types of government.
Are you
Please.
sure?
What? You came in and you disrupted my class. All right.
My apologies.
It's okay, it's accepted. So you understand where I'm coming from now. Let's drop this, that there was pre-colonial thing. We're not going to belabor it too much, but it's just background information for you to know that what you're going to read in Chris Allen, or what you have read in Chris Allen, is not where it started, but it is on that, on vestiges, we'll say, remnants of it, that this new form was built. And because of what had existed before, we're going to have problems with this new one. They're going to try to put old wine in new bottles. And it's not going to taste exactly the way you want it. And that's what Chris is going to tell us. Now, let me quickly change gear. This is what you all know. When you talk about politics right? Politics is the center of it. What is politics? Yeah? Casey, if I say politics, what comes to your mind? What is politics to you?
Sorry, I'm thinking.
You're free.
I guess it's how like the leadership of like a place interacts with each other and how like the conflicts they have between ideas.
Okay, ideas. Okay, Tyrone, what is politics to you?
Kind of like Casey said, like ideas. And I guess you push
Okay,
forward.
Isaac,
Yeah.
what? You support what Casey said, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody, Isaac, do you have anything different?
I think how governments manage assets and relationships with other governments.
I think that's intergovernmental or foreign affairs. Okay, but Julia? There's no politician in this class, that's what it means. None of you in student
Yes,
union.
how governments like serve the citizens.
What?
Like how governments serve their citizens.
Politics is how governments serve their citizens. Okay, so there's nobody in student union government here. Ooh. What is politics to you?
It's power brokering. It's deciding who gets what and how.
It's how, yes. What do you think politics is? Mary? Okay, all right. There are some silly definitions of politics. Politics, you heard, is a game of numbers. You've heard that before? Politics is a game of numbers. Politics is the gateway to power, right? It is what you got to get involved with in order to get to power and authority. It is a pot that cooks the food. It is not yet about governance. What you all are describing is governance. But politics and politicking has to do with politicians. And I can see how some of you, like, hey, I don't want to be a part of the student union government. That is the beginning of, that's a form of politics. It's local politics. Every politics is local. You have to become a member of your local political organization. So to understand what Chris Allen is saying, you need to first have in your mind what this central thing, politics, is. If you shoot up a little bit, it has political parties. And political parties, by my definition, how they're formed, I don't want to do this again. Don't worry, I'll just tell you. Because I wanted to know how political parties are formed. Political parties in a place like Germany, some of them started off with a coalition of ideas, like people who were green, the green movement. They wanted science to be at the forefront of the discourse of some of the phenomena they were seeing, climate change and all. They were not just going to talk from the top of their heads. So they were a group of people who believed in the same thing. Then it formed a movement, meaning that from different little crannies, they all came together and formed a coalition. And from there, they evolved into a political party. They weren't winning more than 2 seats at some point. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can coalesce behind an idea. Somebody said idea, I heard it. I think it was Casey who started this idea business. And ideology. Ideology is a political thing. From how you see society. What do you want society to be? You will never believe there were lots of blacks in the Republican Party. Because if you read the history of the Republican Party, very laudable ideas until something happened. And they became what they are today. It was a party of values and ideals. They believed in family and all of those good things that make societies grow. And there's no way we can divorce politics from economics. Because once a political party has succeeded, they now be the ones to formulate policies. Hello? It is not politics that formulates policies. It is the result of politics that allows you to get into governance to formulate policies. Am I making sense? Or, you see, what I'm getting is that some of you have questions, but you don't know how to ask it. So let me just explain this to you. So politics, you have political parties. It's easy for you to understand that in America, there are 2 dominant political parties, but there are like 37. There's so many others that you don't hear of year in, year out. And they actually have presidential candidates every year. But because they don't get the numbers, remember, politics is a game of numbers. If they don't get the numbers, they were not going to make it. To even allow them, you all know that Kanye West had a political party and he contested as president, but he didn't get enough signatures to be on that debate. Okay, so there are political parties, then there are power blocks. Every society has power blocks and their interest groups. They are the ones behind the scene. You will never believe it. They call them the Koch brothers. Anybody heard of the Koch brothers? Yeah. Yes, you have. Any other person heard of the Koch brothers? Yeah, Isaac has. Tyron, ever?
No, I haven't.
Any other person? Look, the Koch brothers are very rich in this country. Very, very rich. Billionaires?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. They get to the point in which they craft legislations and they bring in people they support and they will table it in Congress. Sometimes word for word. But you need to read. Am I right? Is this the spelling? K-O-C-H? Koch brothers.
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Koch brothers.
Yes. C-K-O-C-H. Brothers. They're brothers. Please look up them. So they are the power blocks. And power blocks are different. There are the fundamental Christian power blocks. They are not members of political parties, but they shape who goes in there and who gets elected. They are not politicians. But they're very, very important. Okay, on the 2 sides, you know that on the cross, when Jesus died, there was a thief on the right and there was a thief on the left. The thief on the left are the electoral commissions. They're supposed to be independent adjudicators. And then on this side, the membership of the political parties and the officials. This is what we need to know when you hear the word politics, because it's going to talk about political system. Every system is made up of units. These are the units. I have not, you see, there is a cloud covering all of this, is the judiciary. They're not politicians. They're not into politics, but they are the umpires. And then behind all of this is the media. They play a very important role in projection of individuals who want to be politicians. Okay, all of these are important and they play a big role. Okay, let me go to my last one. It ran away. Okay, I'll go get it. Okay. I have a last one. Okay. Oh. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. All right. Somebody saying something? Oh, great. Okay. Isaac, what was that great? You were responding to something great. Okay. All right. Okay. So for today, this is what I have. And you're supposed to read that article. There's 20 pages. It's long. But it's going to give you an idea of the diversity and the different permutations of the political scene on the continent, right? And Chris Allen, this crisis of theory in the study of Africa was written by Oluko Shusi in 2004. The article you're reading was written in 1995. The reason why the date is important is because those are milestones. Africa in 1995 is not the same Africa of 2004. By 2004, there has been a lot of protests. And if you look at it in 2015, the protests had changed to another idea, to decolonization. Before then, the protests we had on the continent were that we wanted multi-party states, many, more than one. And in some cases, there were protests against military rule. The military interregnum is what we call them. Because Africa was in a hurry. I must confess, as a young man, I believed strongly in brutal force. Brutal force. I have changed a great deal now. From 1984 to now, I have changed a great deal. I did not believe when I was growing up in my teens and 20s that human beings could be told, please leave this class. Please go out, and that they would go. I never believed it. I believed the only thing human beings understood was brute force, was pressure. Get up and get out. And they would immediately get up and get out. But if you go there and say, ladies and gentlemen, please, there's fire in the next room, would you get up? Some of them will sit down and be painting their faces, painting their noses, and they wouldn't get up. So I believed in military rule. I believed that, yeah, get them out. They would get out. Is that me? Okay. Well, I will use my voice to cover it. Yeah. So the protests then were to get rid of the military because they ruled by force. I was one of their supporters. I believed that the African society would grow faster if the military boys were there. All these parliamentary niceties, I begged to move the motion for rubbish. I didn't like any of those. I don't have the heart for political niceties. I thought that Africa didn't need that. We were in a hurry to grow, and politicians, as far as politics is called a dirty game. They think they're thieves. But you know what? The military broke my heart. They broke my heart. I have not recovered till today as I'm talking to you. I'm a broken man. They were bigger thieves than the politicians. They stole because they were authoritarian. So I am between the devil and the deep blue sea as I talk to you. And Chris Allen is going to bring all of those. You're going to see things like clientelism, where citizens of states become clients to be serviced, like customer relations. Citizenship means that you are a part of governance and you're playing your role, not to just expect from government to, have you ever heard it before? Somebody invites you to a meeting that will make your city better, and you turn around and ask that person, are you? Oh, okay. And you turn around and ask the person, are you going to give me transport money to come to this meeting? These are the things I have with citizens. These liberties and this independence. I say, come and let's discuss how your city will be good. And you're asking me to give you transport money? I would shoot you. But hey, I got out of all of those. I have little patience for politicians and politics, but I try to get to read them. So Chris Allen will be telling subsequently, this is a portion of it I got. Subsequently, divergent pathways, methods from differing responses to early post-independence political crisis, producing contrasting forms of politics. So the African, you can't read, there's no one cap fits all for the continent. It's so divergent. So there are some that have centralized bureaucratic politics. Usually, just to make you feel not asleep, I usually would ask questions, just so that you can also participate. But bureaucracy, that word bureaucracy, a lot of people think it's a bad thing. Bureaucracy was meant to be like a mechanical object, device, that works irregardless of who is there. Hello. Is there any one of you who, if you feel you wake up in the morning and you're feeling bad, and you put a thermometer in your mouth, will the thermometer respond to your feeling bad, or it will just tell you the temperature? Okay, let me use one that you would not like. There are 3 people in this class who will shoot me when I say this, 4 of them. They will shoot me when I say it, but I'm going to say it because it would explain it. A scale in your bathroom is not bureaucratic. No, it's not democratic. That scale, once you step on it, no matter how you feel, it will tell you the number. Right? It will tell you whether you're growing fat or you're maintaining. That's what bureaucracy is supposed to be. Where people do their jobs. But because of what is called the red tape, it has sort of messed up with it. People, human beings, everywhere we get to, we make a mess of. Well, let's see Brent Dobbin. I wanted him to contribute to this discussion. And he talks about, this is not part of your reading, but just to give you a back end understanding. Bureaucratic politics approach, theoretical approach to public policy that emphasizes internal bargaining within the state. Right? You have to have passed through the crucible of politics and been a member of a political party or an independent in America to make it to the state. And it is from there that policies are debated. In America, there is no policy that is enacted without lobbyists. Who are lobbyists? They are people that are paid by certain interests to try to influence the direction of that policy. You do not influence policy after it is made. You influence it in the process of being made. So the bureaucratic politics approach argues that policy outcomes result from a game of bargaining among small, highly placed group of governmental actors. We have Bill Gates, the last time I checked, has never worked in any government. He's not a minister, secretary of state, or anything. But does he have influence on the government? You bet. Zuckerberg, just Facebook, plaything, social media, that we all go there to dump the history of our lives in a game. Zuckerberg makes money off it, and he also makes political influence. So he's a political influencer. He makes money economically, he makes impact politically. He got to a point in which Obama invited him. He was like, yes, it was like the same state with the president. And he could call the president at any time. So these are people who influence. And I want you to see how does this play out on the African continent is what Chris Allen is going to be telling us. So there are highly placed group of governmental actors that are also non-governmental actors. These actors come to the game with varying preferences, like you would understand, abilities and positions of power. Participants choose strategies and policy goals based on different ideas of what outcomes will best serve their organizational and personal interests. So it's not about the interest of the country. Every politics is local. People think of themselves first and then their members, how to benefit them before some of these politics are rolled. I met a lawyer who was telling me, he said, you will never know the frustration of legal draftsmen with politicians. You give them a fine document, they will start tinkering with it until they come up with something that is a total mess. But that is the nature of it. So you need to understand how is politics played on the continent is what Chris Allen wants to talk to you about, right? So he starts off with saying, how many Africans? One, none, or many? When you hear people say African this, when I wear my parachute, somebody says, oh, Dr. Dutola is dressed in an African attire. No, there's nothing so-called. This is a Yoruba attire. It has an ethnic group in which it is linked to. But because people don't know and they just want to put everything in one basket, they say African. It's the same thing with the politics on the continent. There are lots of things that determine what and who and how. So read about how many Africans are we talking about? And he will give you an idea of the diversity and the differences on the continent. He also talks about a model of African political development, decolonization, and clientist politics. When people think themselves as clients. Okay, let me stop this one. Okay, I'm going to so that. All right, you don't think I'm. What I have is I'm looking for the 20 pages you're supposed to read. And I'm taking you through there so that you have a sense of what you're going to encounter. So there's a model for political development. A model means, something like a paradigm. Does politics on the continent, does it fit into any of these theories or any of these ideas? How did we start? I told you from the get-go, and you all know, I don't really have a heart for these political niceties. It takes a lot of time. It never gives anybody anything. And our development on the African continent is tied to the nature of our politics. And yet, because far back in the days of the kings, they took, listen to this. The kings took care of their people. Did you hear that? Took care of them, took care of their needs. Politicians are not kings. They're selfish basketball players, all of them. They're selfish. And it cannot be any other way. People don't get into politics, very, very few. Very, very few, and I can count them on my fingers that actually went into politics because they want to serve the society. Okay? Most of them are there for their selfish interest. So is there a model that we could use for a continent that started off with kings assisting their people and they're looking up to them? Once the king disappeared from the scene, the politicians came, the people remained, and they became clients. So that instead, everything in politics is short-term. Nobody has a long-term view in politics because after 4 years, if you don't deliver, you would lose the election. So it affects the kind of economic policies that are made because of what? Short-term gains. But in a place where decolonization, where the colonial overlords did whatever they wanted without consultation. Now, the new the black faces there, occupying white spaces, how do they begin to carry along? That's the word they said. For people to participate. By the mid-1940s, there were no independent African states. The great bulk of African territories, excluding Egypt and South Africa. Remember that we call something sub-Saharan Africa. You remove the Arabophones, those who speak Arabic, and then take the rest. The reason why they had to do that, sub-Saharan, was because when you add any of these, South Africa that had white settlers, and then the Arabs, if you added them, it distorted the mean, the average. I hope you know that statistics is a lie used by mathematicians to trick the rest of us. There is a mathematician. There's nobody in mathematics here. Alicia, you're in mathematics. You know what I'm talking about. Whenever a politician tells you that the average salary of people in my county is X, just turn your nose at that politician. If you don't ask, what is the highest and what is the lowest? If you don't ask that, then somebody just took you for a ride. Okay? So in order not to have that skewing, they removed those places and they simply called the rest of us sub-Saharan Africa. Okay. Broadly similar to those under the British or French rule, and the impact of the Depression and World War II. While the different territories varied greatly in the level of urbanization, whether they had cities or not, the extent of labor migration, the size of the educated elite, or the wage of employment. If you remember when we were looking at colonialism and its effect on development, even the height of soldiers were used as indicators. Salaries are all part of how the different places differ. So within many of the nationalist movements, there developed a division between a conservative wing drawn from African elites and a radical wing led by members of the elite, but taking its support more from trade groups or trade unionists, ex-servicemen, students, women, labor migrants, and other subordinate groups. If you read this, it gives you an idea of what the agitation for independence and those who led them and the reason why they led them. Once you see the trajectory from pre-independence to independence and post-independence. Who got where? And what was it that happened? So that's my teaser on Chris Allen. Read, if you have any problem with it, it's 20 pages. Let me know. And I will discuss. I will send you some of my slides as well. Again, I'm sorry, I did not intend to be a thief. I have stolen 2 minutes of your time. But you know, Tyrone did not come to class early. So all of you, you can just put it on his head and collect the money. Everybody got to choose. Yes, we didn't come on time. And that's why I had to steal 2 minutes from the rest. Okay. You all need to choose countries, like 5 of them. You all need. But you cannot choose from one sector. You have to choose from one from west, one from east, one from south. And the only way we can organize this is once you have made your choice from North Africa, East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, West Africa, choose one each and send to all the students so that nobody will choose the one you have chosen. Now, Casey and Kelvin cannot choose Ethiopia because they have been there. They need to learn something new from another place. They are the only ones with exemptions. Okay? Do you all understand? Sorry for taking 3 minutes of your time. All the 3 minutes, just put it on Tyro's account. He will pay you all. Choose that and then we'll go on from it. Please don't. What? You're going to pay for the 3 minutes. All of them will charge you and you'll pay for it. So next time you won't come late to class. It was because of you that I overran the time. Somebody must get the blame. Okay. I'll see you all on Tuesday. If you have any question, any concern, please let me know. All right then. Ciao, ciao. All right. See you all. Tyrone, yes, we're going to charge you for coming late to class. All right, guys. It won't happen again. Okay, good. All right. Ciao. Bye.